New York City has had its fair share of criminals, but prepare to be shocked as we take a look at some of the worst people it has ever locked up. Welcome to the top 10 most dangerous criminals inside New York City. Don't forget to throw a like on the video to help us rise in the YouTube algorithm, and comment down below. I do read every single comment. Number 10, Lizzie Halliday. Originally born in Ireland, Halliday's family moved to the United States when she was just 3 or 4 years old. Having married a man in Greenwich, he died just 2 years later before she married a second man, pensioner Artemus Brewer, who also met a sudden untimely death. Her third husband left her within a year, a decision that probably saved his life, and she went on to marry her fourth husband, George Smith. Halliday's crimes began to be noticed after a failed attempt to slip arsenic into his cup of tea, and she fled to Vermont. She married again, this time taking just 2 weeks to kill her intended victim, and later resurfaced in Philadelphia and had changed her name to Maggie Hopkins. She set up a shop in the area and was later found guilty of burning it down to claim the insurance money, being sentenced to 2 years in prison. After prison, she changed her name again, this time to Lizzie Brown, and became the housekeeper for a man named Paul Halliday. Yes, it's getting weirder, who was also 70 years old. After many attempts at killing the family, Lizzie, who was completely insane by this point, burned the family home to the ground, killing his son John after she claimed he tried to save her from the flames. She then burned down the family barn before attempting to run off with another man, but was arrested and sent to an insane asylum before being allowed to return. Paul Halliday disappeared not long after, and after a neighbour voiced her suspicions, a search warrant was obtained by the local police, who found 2 bodies buried in the barn. Further bodies began to appear, and Lizzie was arrested and held at trial at Sullivan County Jail. During her time there, she set fire to her bed, refused to eat, attacked the sheriff's wife, and made several attempts on her own life. After her guilty conviction for 2 murders, she became the first ever woman to be sentenced to death by electrocution, later commuted to life in prison through insanity. She killed again inside Mattawian State Hospital for the criminally insane, attacking one of the attendants with a pair of scissors when she found out she was leaving her job. She died of Bright's disease in 1918, having spent over half her life inside the hospital. Number 9, Martha Beck. Another female serial killer, Martha Beck, along with her partner Raymond Fernandez, is thought to have killed as many as 20 victims during her murder spree between 1947 and 1949. The pair became known as the Lonely Hearts Killers after they met many of their unsuspecting victims through personal ads. The ads had been posted in Lonely Hearts columns of newspapers, and this led many television shows and a number of films being made about their crimes. Many of the female victims were lured in by Fernandez's charms before Martha and her ferocious temper finished them off for good. The couple were arrested on March 1st, 1949, not long after they had attacked a 2-year-old victim, and Fernandez quickly confessed to everything. Black denied being the perpetrator of 17 murders, and Fernandez later retracted his confession when he realized he may face the death penalty. Eventually, they were convicted jointly of just 1 murder, that of Janet Faye, whom Black had caught in the bedroom with Fernandez. Both Black and Fernandez were executed by electric chair in Sing Sing prison on March the 8th, 1951. Number 8, the Long Island Beach Killings. Etched into legend, the Long Island Gilgo Beach killings became one of the most covered news stories between 1996 and 2011. Many of the 11 people killed were sex workers within the local area and had advertised their services on Craigslist, with the perpetrator becoming known as the Long Island serial killer. Found alongside the same road, Ocean Parkway, which runs directly parallel to the ocean, autopsies deemed strangulation to be the cause of death. Rex Heuermann was arrested in July 2023 after one of the longest and largest police investigations in the city's history, and he was charged with 3 murders that year and a 4th in January 2024. 1984. DNA from Heuermann's wife had been found at the crime scene, leading police to eventually capture him. However, police believe there may be more than one serial killer. Heuermann's trial has yet to commence. However, if found guilty, he faces life without the possibility of parole after the state abolished capital punishment in 1860. Number 7. Joe Rifkin. Having been arrested in a sex worker sting in 1987, Rifkin had already been on the radar of the police after offering an undercover officer money for sex. Rifkin began his crime spree in 1989, killing Heidi Balch at his home in East Meadow, doing his best to hide her body after the attack. Over the next 4 years, it is presumed, although not proven, that Rifkin went on to kill 16 more female victims before finally being implicated in the murder of Tiffany Bresciani in 1993. Having picked Bresciani up from Allen Street in Manhattan, he bumped into her pimp, Dave Rubenstein, who he told she would be back in 20 minutes. When she failed to return, Rubenstein called the police, giving a description of Rifkin's vehicle, with Rifkin not ever knowing who he was. His vehicle was noticed for a missing license plate, which had probably fallen off accidentally, and he led police on a 25-minute chase, eventually crashing into a light post. A search of the vehicle revealed Tiffany's body, wrapped in a tarpaulin, and Rifkin was arrested for murder. At trial, he was found guilty of 9 counts of second-degree murder, and received one of the longest sentences in New York history, 203 years in prison. Number 6. David Berkowitz. One of the more famous serial killers on the list, David Berkowitz has featured in at least one of our videos previously. Berkowitz primarily targeted young women and their male companions, who were sitting in parked cars. He would approach the car and open fire with a .44 caliber revolver before fleeing the scene. The randomness and apparent lack of motive behind the attacks created widespread fear and panic throughout the city. In addition to the shootings, Berkowitz taunted the police and the media by sending cryptic letters to newspapers in which he referred to himself as the son of Sam and claimed that a demon possessed by his neighbour's dog compelled him to kill. Berkowitz's killing spree came to an end when he was arrested by police in Yonkers, New York, after being issued a parking ticket near the scene of his last known shooting. Upon his arrest, Berkowitz confessed to the shootings and provided detailed accounts of his crimes. He was subsequently convicted of multiple accounts of murder and attempted murder and sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms in prison. In the years following his arrest, Berkowitz has claimed to have undergone a religious conversion and has expressed remorse for his crimes. He remains incarcerated and has been denied parole multiple times. Number 5. Albert Fish. Thought to have been not only one of the most prolific murderers in New York, but also the whole country, Fish often targeted children when carrying out his crimes. Fish was a particularly nasty individual who took pleasure in writing to the parents of the victims and detailed what had happened to their loved ones. Fish carried out his reign of terror in the districts of Queens and Brooklyn, with him claiming to have murdered over 100 people. He was sentenced to death after being caught and was executed at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, strapped to the electric chair. Number 4. Joseph Christopher. Born in Buffalo, New York, Christopher had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 1978 and reached out for help after noticing his mental health was deteriorating. After trying to admit himself to the Buffalo Psychiatric Center in 1980, he was told he was not a danger to others and could not be accepted into the institution. 14 days after being refused entry, Christopher began his killing spree, with him targeting 3 black men and 1 child with a .22 caliber sawn-off automatic rifle, all within the space of 36 hours. The next day he attacked Colin Cole in a Buffalo hospital, but was disturbed by a nurse during his attempt at strangulation. With the murders unsolved, the killer enlisted in the US Army, being stationed at Fort Benning, and returned to the city at Christmas. 4 more murders were carried out, with Christopher even managing to attack 2 other people with a knife and having them survive. By now he had become known as the Midtown Slasher, had returned to his army base and soon attacked a black soldier with a knife and was placed in the brig as a result. After giving evidence to a psychiatrist, his home in the city was searched by police and evidence linking him to the crimes were revealed. He pleaded not guilty to 3 murders in court and refused counsel, but was found guilty and sentenced to 60 years in prison. Further charges were added in 1985 and guilty verdicts here saw him sentenced to life without parole. Held at Attica Correctional Facility for many years, he died there on March 1st, 1993 from a rare form of male breast cancer at just 37 years old. Number 3. Charles Lucky Luciano. Considered to be one of the most powerful and feared mob bosses of all time, Luciano became known as the father of organized crime in America. Head of the notorious modern Genovese crime family and national crime syndicate, he managed to bring together the 5 mafia families to try and decrease bloodshed overall. Known for running a complex bootlegging operation that saw alcohol imported from the Caribbean and Scotland, Luciano also made profits from gambling and other high-profile activities. He was tried and convicted for running a prostitution racket in 1936 and sentenced to 30 years in prison, yet released under plans to help protect the harbours of New York from German U-boats. Not long after the war, Luciano was deported from the United States and allowed to live a free man, before suffering a massive heart attack at the age of 65. Number 2. Richard Angelo. Working at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Long Island as the aide to a nurse, Angelo had anything but curing patients on his mind. He would often pick out terminally ill patients as his victims, and when he was alone with the patients, suffocate or poison them using arsenic. Before being captured, Angelo is said to have had over 25 victims, with a further 10 people surviving his murderous attempts. Yet the real count may never be truly known. Angelo spent more than a year in Suffolk County Jail after his arrest and failed to pay a $50,000 bond for fear of his own safety. His trial lasted 8 weeks and later saw him convicted with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree manslaughter, 1 count of criminally negligent homicide, and 2 counts of first-degree assault. Currently held at the Great Meadow Correctional Facility on a 50-year sentence, he will become eligible for parole in 2049 at the age of 87. Number 1. Julio Gonzalez. Coming to the United States as a refugee from Cuba, Gonzalez immediately embarked on a life of crime within the city. He served 3 years in prison in the 1970s for deserting the Cuban army and faked entry into the United States on false papers, claiming to be a former drug dealer. After his lover had left him for another man, Gonzalez went on a rampage that led to an arson attack on the unlicensed Happy Land nightclub in the Bronx in 1990. The resulting fire claimed the lives of 87 people, and it was later revealed that the club did not have enough emergency exits, alarms, and sprinklers to allow those inside to escape. Gonzalez was arrested and tried in the city, found guilty and sentenced to 87 25-year sentences, and he was held at the Clinton Correctional Facility for most of his life before his death in 2016. While Gonzalez was considered the nation's worst mass murderer at the time, his crimes led to enforcements on safety practices within all clubs across the city, with over 1,500 closed or shut down. Thanks for watching this video on the top 10 most dangerous criminals in New York City. Please comment down below if you think I missed anything important, subscribe for more crime videos coming soon, and hit the like button to show your support for the channel. We'll see you next time.